Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm here. I'm based also in Portland, Oregon. Relocated after a bit of travel outside of the U.S. As well as in it, and I really like the feel here and the vibe, and I think it's a great place to settle. Um, as far as what's allowed me to do those things and to come here is being in the e-commerce industry, and that's something that I got started in quite a while ago in the early 2000s. I was in a
Wow.
spot in life where, I'm a guy 43 now, so this was in maybe my late 20s. I was kind of looking for a way to get out of some previous professions that I was in and figure out how to own my time a bit more and how to take a different path. And I started off in e-commerce with owning a shop that I did a lot of custom made items, some drop shipping, physical inventory that I stored,
Hmm.
and changed shopping carts several times over the years and learned a lot of stuff and a lot of hard lessons because I was also working full time during all those years. This is before we had all the resources available that we have today, with all the different forums and podcasts and learning things. So uh, I spent a lot of time running a store. And then at some point, I kind of got into the agency world and started off in sort of the SEO, PPC area. And over time, I started kind of wanting to take a different direction. I wasn't super happy with the way that some of the acquisition was done,
Hmm.
and kind of a way I didn't really feel it added value just to the web overall and to some people's business. So where I started asking myself, where could I add value, or what areas of the internet, specifically for e-commerce, could add value? And what I started leaning towards is figuring out how to convert better. Meaning, instead of telling people about ranking and traffic, I was getting more concerned with let's talk about revenue, let's talk about profit, let's talk about average order value. And from there I started learning a lot about conversion optimization, and that kind of led me to where I am today. I run a site called ecommercewarriors.net, and I work with outdoor brands, and I help them make more profit. I mean, I guess you can call me a business analyst for
Hmm.
e-commerce stores. And one of the things that I picked outdoor brands for is, here, especially in Portland, there's fantastic nature around. And what I was finding with outdoor brands, a lot of them specifically they have a lot of knowledge about what they do because they like, being in the woods or being outside doing a sport or whatever it may be, but they don't always understand how to communicate that well to people that are maybe
Hmm.
visiting a website. So that's kind of hopefully sets the stage, but that's kind of where I came from, and how I got into doing conversion rate optimization, and how I came to kind of specialize in the outdoor niche, which is what I think we're going to talk about a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. What do you, so a lot of people know about like Google Analytics, right? I mean, what is that exactly? What are you doing? What's the actual work of conversion rate optimization? Is it design work? Is it copywriting work? Is it analyzing? Like, what are you doing exactly?
Right. That could be all of the above. I mean, back to some of the first part. I mean, if we kind of start with Google Analytics, and in simplest form, it's simply a way of collecting metrics about what visitors to your store are doing. And what analytics is really good at is telling you what happened and where, but it doesn't
Mm.
necessarily tell you why something happened. So I would say the conversion rate optimization is the process of figuring out what happened, where it happened, and then using your insights and shopper insights to figure out why something happened, and taking all that information together and say, okay, this is the kind of problem that we're seeing, or the opportunity that we're seeing, and then these are some of the approaches that we can take to uh, improve the situation that we're finding. So
Mhm.
it's collecting metrics. It's collecting things like shopper feedback. It's having an understanding of psychology. It's having an understanding of design. It's having an understanding of business principles, and then figuring out how to mash all those things together in a way that you can explain to someone that really likes being outdoors. This is what we're finding with your digital presence, and this is what we think you should fix. And then here's some approaches that we can take to maybe do some testing to see if our ideas actually are going to result in more money or better conversions for you. So that's kind of a high level view of what that could be.
Okay. One thing that I notice when people start installing or start using platforms like Shopify. So Shopify will have a whole, well, a short list really of activities that people should do. So one of them is set up ads, right? But ads is more complicated than that, right? The other thing it does is it asks people to set up Google Analytics.
Hmm.
But I, from talking to you, I feel like analytics is not as simple as adding some code to your site. So may it why might it not make sense for people to try to approach um, analytics on their own?
Gotcha. Well, there's something called vanity metrics. You've probably heard of it, and that's the approach that a lot of people do take on their own in a DIY situation. Is that to look at the high level numbers. For example, revenue, is it up or down? Is my bounce rate up or down? Which pages do people exit from the most? But when people take that approach, doing it on their own, they don't always have, I guess, the experience and the insight to know what to do with that, or meaning bounce rate is up compared to what? Meaning they may not have an understanding of segmentation. Segmentation could be anything from what devices are shoppers using to what marketing channel did they come from. That's taking it a little bit of a step further. So I think that's one of the missing components is people not necessarily understand how to segment or how to set a baseline, meaning like a measurement plan. Like it's one thing to say, okay, you know what, this coming quarter, we want to increase sales, but that's not specific enough. You got to get even deeper, meaning, well, what are all the different ways? Let's say your objective is increase sales. Let's break that down into a goal. One of the ways we can do that is by increasing conversion. Okay, well, where can we increase conversion? Could it be that how many people will add something to their cart? Can we figure out ways to get more people to add something to their cart? Could we look at site search as a segment and say, what happens when people use site search versus the people that don't use site search, and what actions can we take specifically to move the needle? So I think that that's the problem with a lot of do-it-yourselfers is they'll say, okay,
Mhm.
sales are down, so let's just throw more money at marketing, but they don't necessarily have the insight or the resources to take that several levels deeper to look at some of the demographics, devices, marketing channels, and even macro and micro conversions on the site to be able to say that, okay, when people subscribe to this particular opt-in area on our site and get an educational sequence, they're more likely to purchase, or maybe their average order value is higher. So it's just a lack of just knowledge and a process in order to make it happen.
Okay. Is there a certain level of traffic that a store owner needs in order for analytics to be even helpful, or does it matter?
No, I would say that as long as you're getting some type of traffic, you can try and glean insights. I mean, most stores out there are probably going to get at least 5,000 or so unique visitors a month. I mean, that's definitely enough. Whereas if you're going to do something like even A/B split testing, then you start looking at that. Okay, do I have at least say 20,000 unique visitors or so a month in
Okay.
order to run some kind of a test? And if I don't, another great approach that you can take is using a tool like Hotjar in order to gain visitor insights. For example, that particular tool can show you heat map data, meaning like where people scrolled, how far down they scrolled on a page, what they clicked, if other things were maybe distracting them from clicking where you would like them to click.
Hmm.
Hotjar allows you to look at visitor session recordings as well, meaning actually anonymously see where people are moving their mouse, how many pages they visit in a session, if they're having problems. And one of the best things I found, especially if you don't have a lot of traffic, is visitor polls. Like what I found a lot of success with is putting a poll on the cart page on desktops if someone is about to leave. And the
Hmm.
way we determine if they're about to leave is if someone moves their mouse towards to close the browser. So in that case, pop up a little poll that says, hey, is there what information is missing that would help make your decision to buy easier? That's something that on a client site that I worked with today, this happened to be a larger company that was doing upwards of 100 million in revenue, but using this type of a technology was actually still new for them. And within a couple of hours of putting a poll live, we already had about 12 to 15 responses starting to roll in. So people that added things to their cart and they were about to leave. And then you can see questions starting to pile up of, if shipping was free, I would buy. Is this item in stock? Is there a
Yeah.
coupon code? How long does this take? So that's one of the approaches to conversion optimization you can take if you don't have a lot of traffic. Is just asking your shoppers and asking them at the right time.
I like that because that seems like almost like a low tech, like
Hmm.
a easier way to get some insights into your shoppers. What are some other sort of less complicated, meaning less complicated than Google Analytics? Some less complicated ways of getting insights from your shoppers.
Right. Well, if we look past analytics, then again, I think Hotjar would be my second choice.
Hotjar, okay.
Right. Or as a third choice, if you have an email list, is just ask people. I mean, send them a survey. You could do that with something like Hotjar. You could do it with, you know, send them a link to a Google form, Typeform, SurveyMonkey, any of those services. Just literally ask them some questions. If you have your list segmented enough, meaning it could be people that have purchased from you in the past that haven't purchased in the last few months. Okay, by the way, it seemed like you were purchasing before, but you're not now. What's going on? Did something change? Or maybe you can segment your list into whales, meaning people that were purchasing more than other people, like your VIP customers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And asking them specific questions. So the questions are going to kind of vary depending upon, what niche you're in and stuff like that. But I think that would be the lowest tech way, is to just literally survey people.
Okay, cool. I got it. What are so you specialize in the outdoor space, right?
Hmm.
So outdoor companies who are helping them out with their e-commerce customer experiences. Are there any like unique customer problems that outdoor companies face in particular, or are they like other types of companies?
Uh, there's definitely some unique problems. One of the ones we touched on earlier is a lot of the people that are in that space like being outdoors, and they aren't necessarily as techy as some other people can be. And what that means is they have a lot of experience in their craft. I mean, let's take
Hmm.
I don't see any names necessarily, but let's say you have a site that sells like camping gear, for example.
Yeah.
Those people may have so much expertise, but they're not communicating that well. For example, they just put a selection of backpacks on the site, but why would I buy from you versus I can go to REI or someone like that and find a coupon and purchase it much cheaper. So people aren't using their unique skill set and their unique knowledge and trying to explain, hey, this is why I get into the outdoor space in the first place, and trying to relate to people on just a human level,
Hmm.
and writing product descriptions that speak to that, like, hey, that feeling you get when the sun is setting and you're going up a mountain, and you're able to grab your drink just right when you're sitting on a rock to just taking a scenery. They're not really speaking like that. So I would say one of the main problems is not communicating your knowledge through product descriptions, through talking about why your company is different in your passion,
Hmm.
um, not using that knowledge to even collect email addresses with specific opt-ins. And another thing that I think is very specific to the outdoor niche is that average order values are often lower than they could be, and paths to purchase are longer than they should be.
Why?
Meaning that if, let's say, you're purchasing a backpack, there could be other things you want to fill your backpack with. It could be a water bottle. It could be a first aid kit. A lot of times there could be a couple cross-sell items that are at the bottom of a page, so meaning that you have to then scroll to the bottom and click. Or if you already added something to your cart, if there's no cross-sells, well, what often happens is people then click back to the home page and they start their journey again, as opposed to retailers looking at a history of their SKUs that are commonly purchased together, and they say, oh, okay, people that usually purchase a backpack also purchase this particular sleeping pad, and maybe they purchase a rain fly for their pack, and then creating a bundle so that on your
Mhm.
product page you can have a few bundle options. So instead of having to have 10 more clicks to go back to the homepage and start shopping all again, you can offer package deals of what a lot of people tend to like, and letting them just purchase what they need and go through the process a lot quicker. So that's the other big problem
Okay.
that I see along with communication, is just improper merchandising or missed opportunities.
Oh, okay, got it. I got some questions off of some very common complaints off of the Shopify forums. I spent a lot of time sort of perusing the Shopify forums, well, actually lurking, and
Mhm.
there's some questions that I want to sort of pitch to you and see if we can get some help. Like you're an
Sure.
expert in e-commerce, right? And it's just a couple questions. So one very common complaint that I see when people start to set up their stores is, why do so many shoppers come to my store and then they leave without buying? So what's going on there?
Right. Well, to answer that specifically, of course, for each retailer would take digging into some of the techniques that we mentioned. But I can tell you
Yeah, right.
at a high level, a lot of times what happens is people could run a marketing campaign and people come because maybe they're interested. But once they come, maybe the landing page doesn't match what was promised in an ad.
In the
Or
ad.
maybe they just come out of curiosity or a sale, but then they're not getting all the information that they need to make a purchase. So, for example, a lot of times people leave the cart because their questions weren't answered earlier in the journey. And those could have been things like, why should I buy from you versus someone else? Or it could be very practical things like, how long is it going to take to get my item? Or if I don't like it, how can I return it? So a lot of times people can't even find that information, or they have to go down to the footer to look at policies and start digging through stuff, as opposed to like being on the cart page and seeing some tooltip rollovers where these are all the common questions people ask. So that's a lot of
Mhm.
what I see, is that people will be interested, or maybe they're just busy and they're at work. In which case, a lot of people don't offer the opportunity to save your cart and use urgency. So, hey, I've got these items in your cart, but by the way, stock is low. It sells out quick. Would you like to enter your email so you can at least save your cart and get it emailed to you so you can come back later? Or stuff like that. So that's what I see, is a lot of questions are just not answered earlier, or people just don't have enough reason to want to buy. Or in a lot of cases, people are looking for a coupon code, especially for sites that prominently feature during checkout. Enter your coupon code. I mean, a lot of
Mhm.
times when watching Hotjar recordings, people will then leave the site to go find a coupon code. Then they just get distracted and then never come back.
Wow, really?
Mhm.
So that would be a big problem if you're using a system like Shopify, and that's sort of by default um, a part of the checkout process, something that is possibly overlooked. Wouldn't it be overlooked?
Absolutely. If you haven't provided enough value in terms of trying to make a sort of a humanized connection, and then answering those practical questions about shipping and about delivery time frames, and even just little incentives like, why not put a customer testimonial or something on the cart page just to give someone a little bit of a push.
Hmm.
So in those cases, if all people are seeing is discount, 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 their mind automatically goes into, okay, I need to get this cheaper. So if you haven't given them any other reason to want to talk to you, it all goes down to money, and most of us really can't win that game of offering the cheapest item.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So another question that I commonly see is how to get people. How do I, get people to come back to the store? Are there like common solutions for that, or is it like the question about people leaving, where it's more like it depends? Are there any common ways or common solutions that you've employed in helping people improve their outdoor e-commerce sites?
Yeah, there's a couple approaches to that. I mean, one of them a lot of us could be familiar with is retargeting. So if someone comes, if maybe they added something to the cart and they left, is then following them around to other sites, and because you dropped a cookie on their machine that they visited, maybe they have something in your cart, is doing retargeting ads. So that's one approach to try and get people to come back. Another approach, of course, is trying to get an opt-in for email that's specific to the products that they're looking at. So if they're looking at a backpack, maybe it's some kind of an educational piece about how to properly fit and size your backpack or something like that. Download this checklist. By the way, would you care to exchange your email address for it? Which could be a lot different than if someone is looking at maybe camping stoves. But hey, you're trying to compare, butane stoves versus you know, alcohol burners. What are the differences? Here are the 5 things that you really need to know before you purchase something. So basically, finding a way to collect someone's email so that you can follow up with them. That's one of the ways to bring people back, using something like a tool like Klaviyo, for an example, that can help identify that someone's been to your site, and maybe You went back a few days later and you browsed the category, and you can be able to specify this person browsed this category and viewed this product 3 times, but then they left. You send them triggered emails based on that action. So those are
Oh,
kind of the two approaches: is trigger behavioral based emails using something like a Klaviyo, or doing retargeting ads. And
okay.
something like Klaviyo can even build a list of your behavior, and then you can automatically send that list to Facebook for a custom audience. So then when that person goes to Facebook, you can show them ads that are very tailored towards them based on the actions that they took on your site. So those are a couple approaches I
Yeah.
recommend that can work very well.
Those seem kind of complicated. I mean, do you find that people try to make that happen on their own, or do they typically reach out to somebody like you to set all that up?
hmm it's going to depend. I mean, there's a lot of people that like to do it themselves. I mean, you can have people that are, only doing 1 million a year that want to hire someone, and you can have a company doing 20 million a year that insists on doing it themselves. And there's, with something like, say, Shopify, there's of course extensions, and you can get, I think you can get fairly far doing some of that stuff yourself, but I definitely think that there's a point that you can hit that you're just not sure where else to go from there. Maybe you just need more ideas for different tests to run, or how to build different segments, for
Mhm.
email. You're not really sure what imagery or messaging or cadence that you should use to contact people. So I think a lot of it depends on the person, but I think at the very least, people can always benefit from reaching out to someone like myself for at least a strategy session, or if they feel like they've been just pounding the pavement for months and months and they're not getting where they need to be. Sometimes just a fresh set of eyes to even just come in and briefly look at what they're doing can help people gain a lot more clarity on stuff like that.
Okay. So there's one word I want to just backtrack. So you use the word segment. So for people who don't know what that means, can you explain like what a segment is and why that is important?
Yeah, absolutely. Segments is kind of another word for cohort, meaning just a group of people that have a common trait. So if we were speaking of Google Analytics, for example, there's a lot of segments you can apply. It could be, let's look at people that came in on a mobile device. That could be a segment, people that use mobile devices.
Hmm.
Whereas a segment could be, let's look at people that came from a Facebook ad versus people that came from Google organic search. That could be a segment. Whereas if you're speaking in terms of email marketing and behavioral email marketing, a segment could be someone that viewed the backpacks category 3 times and didn't purchase. So these are the backpack people that didn't purchase, versus a segment of your VIP customers, however you define that. That could be people that purchased, 5 times in the last 3 months, or it could be people that spend more than your average order value amount too. So that could be the VIP segment versus, Joe Schmo, everyone else. So it's just a group of people that have a common trait, however you want to
Okay.
define it. Yeah.
Okay. I had another question from my bag of Shopify forum questions. Um, this one's about adding items. So why do so many shoppers, and this is again me speaking a as a store owner who needs help, right? Why do so many shoppers add items to their cart and then they just leave? I think that's called abandoned abandoned shopping cart, right?
Correct, and generally 68% of people that do that abandon. A lot of people, sometimes you're at work
Okay.
and there could be a technical challenge with the site that maybe the session has timed out by the time they got home and their cart contents was empty, or maybe people didn't see any other way to save those things, because it's not, a lot of people don't bookmark things as much as we used to. So if that particular site didn't give you a way to maybe create favorites or save them to a list, the only option people do have is to add things to their cart. So maybe they're just in the mode that they're not ready yet, but they want to compare. So for
Hmm.
them, it could just be a personal wish list, so to speak. And maybe
Okay.
that person didn't have an account on the website, and maybe they didn't want to go through the hassle of creating an account. So great idea is to let people maybe just save items and then get emailed a list or something like that. So that's why I think a lot of people add stuff. There was a site I was working on an analysis for recently, that people were just adding things from the category grid without even clicking through to what we call the PDP, like the product page. So they were just going through like that, click, 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 added a dozen things within 2 minutes. just so that way they can go back at a later date and kind of start sorting through what they had and compare, and then make their choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't give them any other way to save, that's the only thing people are left with to do.
Okay, got it.
Mhm.
Look, man, I mean, I definitely need to have you back on and we can do like another 1 or 2 episodes together because I definitely have a lot
Great.
more questions about, how the intersection between outdoor stores and analytics and marketing and design all sort of come together.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, well, my site is called eCommerceWarriors.net, and I have a special URL I'll give you that gives some of the strategies we've talked about now, and there's some examples for the outdoor niche, and that's eCommerceWarriors.net/reclaim, RECLAIM. So
Okay.
eCommerceWarriors.net/reclaim.
All right. Thanks. Well, we're at the end, and thanks for answering all those questions.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just want to sort of make sure that a lot of the technical terms are explained because like you said, some people are not technical, you know,
Right.
and so I want to give us some extra time to sort of talk about those different terms. So,
Okay.
but thanks for being on, and
Okay.
I'll see you next time.
This sounds great. Thanks so much for having
Yeah.
me.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.